welcome to the weekend. I'm Jon Caldara, your Devil's Advocate, and you're watching Devil's Advocate. This is the second week we've done this. Do you like this set? Do you not like the set? Do you like these people? From the Denver Post, Lynn Bartels.
How are you?
Good to have you here.
Thanks.
14 years. Tell me you like the new set. Don't tell me. Ed Sealover from the Denver Business Journal.
I named you Satan years ago.
You did.
I think it's appropriate.
It is appropriate. Welcome.
Thank you.
All right, let's get into it. Session's over. This was one of the most odd sessions I've seen in a long time, legislative sessions. Democrats controlled everything. Republicans were finally unified because they couldn't pass anything that they really wanted to do. So let's start over here. What kind of session was it? What was the major theme of this one?
I think the theme of this session was the tax exemption bills that started this session. Set out the theme of how are we going to pay for government, essentially? And from the very beginning, the Democrats put forth the idea we're going to have to pay for government by, taking some from our departments, taking some from private business, and everyone's going to pitch in. And the Republicans fought back and said, no, we can't take any from private business. They're the only people in the world who are hiring. We've got to let them succeed and cut back on our own pocketbook. And that was the standing theme for everything that happened, whether it was government regulations, whether it was even as far as the teacher tenure bill, the idea of government oversight versus not government oversight came in, and I think that was where it really went.
Yeah, but the teacher tenure was interesting because the legislature opened with Republicans and Democrats fighting over the tax credits and ended with Democrats fighting each other. I mean, because all the Republicans were for the teacher tenure bill, so it was a very ugly battle between the Democrats.
It was great to see Democrats filibustering against Democrats on the last night of the session. But let's get to that in a second. It seemed to me that this was, the Democrats have a sense, I'm just speculating here, tell me if you think I'm wrong, that this could be the end of their reign of having both the House and the Senate and a governor's office, that they know maybe next year they're not going to have one of the two houses. And I get a sense that they were putting things up that they wanted to get through, and they wanted to get through this year. Did you get that sense, or am I reading into it?
Did you feel that?
I did. I really did. And I think in particular, I think it was the environmental community that wanted to do that. Bill Ritter, I think his lasting legacy to the state will be he was the environmental governor. He was the renewable energy governor. And regardless of whether it's a Democrat or a Republican in the office next year, I don't think the environmental community completely trusts John Hickenlooper. So they were ramming through everything they could, getting the renewable energy standard up to 30%, putting through tax breaks for solar, electricity, things like that.
Beating up on the coal industry in order to give a break to the natural gas industry, saying, Excel, please change over those coal-fired power plants to natural gas. That was, for me, the big theme. I kind of get the sense Ritter's leaving. He went down. I was there the day he went down to the House basement and started lobbying for the 30% mandate. So now, within 4 years of him being in office, we took a 10% mandate for renewables all the way up to a 30% mandate for renewables. Does anybody care? I have a sense that nobody's going to feel the cost of that for a decade or so.
One thing you have to remember about the natural gas bill, I mean, Cole's saying, oh, I feel slighted, but there were Republicans on board with that natural gas bill as sponsors, and
including Josh Penry.
Josh Penry, and Ellen Roberts, wasn't she the House sponsor on that? She's got a tough race in November. But there's the natural gas industry who doles out money in campaigns, and they're working with the Democrats on this.
Are you saying that business is the same as it's always been down there? Lobbyists have an impact?
Well, not during the session.
Not during the session.
Only after.
Only after the session. All right, let's bring it back to your employer, mostly involved in business, Business Journal. All 12 of your subscribers are concerned about business tax breaks. Was this a success for business? Business, remember, we elected a business-friendly Democrat. That was Bill Ritter. Remember the Republicans for Bill Ritter. Has he been that business friendly? Was this year looked like the most business unfriendly of his 4 years?
Well, I mean, business groups say this was the most business unfriendly year they can remember, period. I mean, it started off again with those 11 tax exemption bills, which is one more than the number of watchers that this show has. And it really,
yes.
And it wasn't just that. I mean, those were the big losses for business. They came out, the campaign, they said, we're going to lose jobs if you take away this kind of income. Again, the Democrats said, well, look, somebody's got to help pay the bills, or else we're going to have to cut schools even more. But what happened after that was I think, the slightly less told but even more important story, and that you saw a succession of bills that came out that the business groups almost felt were to punish them. Bills to take away all enterprise zone tax cuts, for example, or to put all of them under a microscope every 10 years. And of course, the sponsors are saying, look, we just need accountability. We need to find out if these things are actually working. But business groups said they felt the atmosphere changed from one of help balance the budget to, oh, you're not going to back us? We'll show you what we can do. And I think that is really what's going to be the theme of this off session, this election, is who got their feelings hurt the most in this legislature? Is it the business groups who are going to suddenly activate and get out and campaign for Republicans and the Democrats that back them? Is it the teachers union that hated the school budget cuts and hated the teachers' tenure bill? Are they going to get out and work the most? I mean, whoever is the group that was insulted the most will be the most active at the polls.
A little bit about what do they call it, the dirty dozen. Now, this was something that all Republicans could stand up and be united, because if there's one thing we Republicans are good at, it's being in the minority. We got that one down well. We all can sing off the same choir sheet when we're in the minority. It's when we're in leadership we screw up. With the dirty dozen, these were all these little business tax breaks, from putting a sales tax on soda and sugar products and candy, paper products that restaurants have. And of course, my favorite, ending the tax credit for the production of bull semen, which I hear is a weekend hobby for you. This is these things businesses said you can't do. Was it the right decision? How are people going to get it?
You say, was it the right decision? But let's say that the economy doesn't improve, and let's say we have the same climate next year, and let's say Scott McGinnis is the governor. What are you going to do, Scott? I mean, there's only so much money, and you can do this thing about cutting and cutting and cutting. Well, remember when Republicans were in charge and they had the budget crisis of '03, and you argued they didn't cut enough. They said, we've cut $1 billion.
And they didn't cut enough.
So, I mean, at some point, I don't know, everybody feels the pain on this. I mean, I actually think sometimes going after business is a psychologically bad thing, because it wasn't like you were saying, okay, we're going after, pharmaceuticals, or something like that. You're going after Enstrom's Candy in Grand Junction, this legendary company who's up there saying, this has been our worst year in years. Please don't do this to us.
Don't add insult to injury.
It was the little people. Of course, there were great ironies through that whole debate. My favorite is Keith King and some of the other Republicans getting up and arguing for those poor Pueblo union workers who could possibly lose their jobs. You've got to save the unions. There was a lot of strange battles there.
What was really fun for me in the Dirty Dozen fight and all these other tax exemptions, that a lot of these came when the Republicans were in control. And I didn't support all of these. The bull semen tax is the perfect example that before, when we had a surplus that Tabor was going to refund, all these other business groups got their refund via tax exemptions first, and then the people got their tax check back. And this time around, when we finally get a refund coming again, we won't have all those. So instead of saying you're only going to get $50 if we put in another Ref C, it could be, if we say no to the next Ref C, you could get $500 or $1,000. I'm wondering if the Democrats in the long run have put themselves in a tighter position.
Well, I think we're going to find out, not in the long run, but in the short run. I mean, people are angry at government this year, and this is, this is a very nuanced subject. The idea of how much do we cut in terms of public money going to private business in order to balance out the budgets. But it can be summarized really easily on 2x4 cards that show up in your mailbox saying they raised your taxes, vote against them. We're going to see exactly how angry the voters are this fall.
Well, we already know they're livid.